Hello and welcome to the first module in the AAMI Guide for Cochairs. Thank you for your interest in learning more about the co-chair role and for supporting AAMI Standards program. Co-chairs play a critical role in the development of AAMI standards. This material was developed to provide some essential information to both inexperienced and experienced co-chairs. This module will provide a high-level overview of the co-chair role, the principles and policies of standards development at AAMI, and how consensus bodies are made up. Additional modules will look more closely at co-chair selection and roles, how to successfully navigate comment resolution, and will walk you through the AAMI document development process. Please note that these modules do not cover the role of conveners in either ISO or IEC. Those organizations have their own training material on their websites. This module is intended to complement the AAMI Guide for Co-Chairs booklets that is posted along with the video. Please be sure to download that document for future reference. And finally, this module presumes a level of familiarity with the AAMI document development process. If you are brand new to standards development, you might want to take a look at Module 4 first. So let's get started. It has already been noted that co-chairs play a critical role on AAMI committees. They are selected from representatives of industry, government, and the user community. In their capacity as co-chairs, these healthcare professionals lead a work group of colleagues through the process of drafting, reviewing, editing, and finally publishing what are considered best practices for the industry. As part of their duties, co-chairs play an important role in communicating the value and meaning of AAMI standards to stakeholder groups, both inside and outside of AAMI. Because co-chairs are drawn from various stakeholder groups within the healthcare industry, they understand the needs and the culture of those who will implement the standards. To draw upon the widest pool of potential leaders, AAMI has an interest in developing and mentoring new co-chairs who are inexperienced in leading a standards development process. AAMI staff are professionals in the standards development process and provide direct assistance to co-chairs in executing the key responsibilities of the role. The concepts incorporated in this guide should not be considered inflexible or static. This guide will be reviewed and updated periodically to reflect best practices in leading standards committees and working groups. It will also draw upon the experience and recommendations of AAMI co-chairs. There are 4 groups of people outside of standards committees that co-chairs should be aware of. The AAMI Standards Board oversees the activities of standards committees. The AAMI Standards Board members serve 3-year renewable terms and are appointed by the AAMI Senior Vice President of Standards Program and Policy. The Standards Board is responsible for the approval of any new work item proposals for work by a committee, termination of work, final approval of AAMI technical documents, and hearing appeals. In addition to these responsibilities, the Standards Board also advises the Standards Department Senior Vice President on co-chair appointments, and they also review the progress of committee work. The AAMI Board of Directors is the top governance body for AAMI, and that group serves as the final appellate body for disputes concerning membership, procedures, standards, or TIRs. The Committee on Standards Strategy is a strategic group whose primary goal is the development of safe and effective healthcare technology and services. AAMI staff manages the day-to-day aspect of AAMI programs, including advising committees on AAMI policies and procedures, scheduling meetings, maintaining records, preparing committee documentation, checking draft documents for possible format and language issues prior to circulation, implementing the balloting and public review process, and coordinating committee and standards board activities. When appropriate, AAMI staff also serves as the interface with the process relating to ISO and IEC documents and relationships. AAMI staff assumes most of the responsibility for communicating with committee members when assigning and collecting committee work tasks. AAMI has several principles that make up the backbone of the standards program. They are incredibly important to AAMI's success as a standards development organization, and all participants are expected to adhere to them. First is due process. Due process means that any person with a direct and material interest has a right to participate. This can be done by expressing a position on a document and its basis, having that position considered by the consensus body, and having the right to appeal any final approvals made by the Standards Board. Due process allows for equity and fair play. The second is consensus. Consensus means substantial agreement has been reached by directly and materially affected interests. It's more than a simple majority agrees, but not necessarily everyone. Unanimity is not required in the standards development process. What is required is that all positions have been heard and discussed and an effort made to resolve them. The third principle is that of openness. Simply put, participation is open to all persons who are directly and materially affected. This is why AAMI meetings are open to anyone who has an interest and why AAMI draft standards are made available for comment by the public. The fourth principle is about stakeholder balance and lack of dominance on consensus bodies. Each consensus body should have a balance of interests and not be dominated by one stakeholder group. Participants from diverse interest categories are sought with the objective of achieving balance, and staff will conduct outreach if one stakeholder group is underrepresented. There are a number of policies that are also in place to protect both AAMI and committee members. The AAMI Standards Program Policies and Procedures outlines in detail the operations and structures used by AAMI to develop technical documents in an environment that ensures due process is followed. If you have ever been to an AAMI meeting, you have heard about the antitrust policy. It states that AAMI meetings cannot be used in violation of antitrust laws to discuss pricing, division, or allocation of sales territories or customers, to establish blacklists or boycotts of suppliers, purchasers, or competitors, to coerce members or others to implement particular programs or policies, or to resolve problems in an arbitrary or unreasonable manner or based solely on the needs of a single party or small group. The consensus body member code of conduct is in place to facilitate AAMI's standards development work and to ensure that the work of the committee is conducted in a respectful and professional manner. The conflict of interest policy ensures that all members present at meetings fully disclose any potential conflict of interest. The patent policy outlines how to handle technical documents that include patents. And finally, the guide on the use of AAMI standards is a copyright policy that states under what circumstances portions of standards can be used freely and when reprint permission is required. Committee co-chairs and members are expected to comply with all AAMI policies and procedures. AAMI also looks to the co-chairs to assist and support AAMI staff with the implementation of these policies. Now we're going to move on to consensus bodies. Standards committees and working groups are consensus bodies that are formed to develop technical documents in a particular area. AAMI currently has approximately 150 committees and working groups that develop documents in a wide array of areas. Informal task groups may be appointed to address very specific technical issues, to research particular technical questions, or to perform the initial drafting of work for new projects. When the task is complete, these groups are usually disbanded. Many of the AAMI committees also have international counterparts in IEC or ISO, and U.S. participation on the International Committee is managed through each related AAMI committee. Committee members either apply for membership to a standards committee or are appointed by their company representative to AAMI. Members should have a direct interest in the work that the committee is responsible for, as well as the time and resources needed to participate in the work of the committee. Committee members fall into one of the following 5 stakeholder categories. The industry category applies to individuals or organizational representatives who are involved in commercial activities related to the technical documents developed by AAMI. This category includes test houses and commercial labs. The user category applies to individual or institutional representatives who use the materials, products, systems, or services covered by technical documents developed by AAMI. People in the user category are generally clinicians or people who work in the healthcare environment in some capacity. The general interest category is made up of individuals who have a general or non-commercial interest in the materials, products, systems, or services covered by the technical documents developed by AAMI. The regulatory category applies to an individual who's involved in the regulation of the materials, products, systems, or services covered by the technical documents developed by AAMI. Most of the participants who fall into this category work for the FDA, but there are a few outliers to this rule of thumb. The seldom used other interest category applies to an individual who does not fit into other categories but still has an identifiable material interest or specialized knowledge of the materials, products, systems, or services covered by the technical documents developed by AAMI. Each individual is designated into one of the interest groups. AAMI's goal is to have a balanced representation of each group on every technical committee. A wide range of perspectives result in high-quality documents. Now we're going to move on to the types of members that make up each consensus body. There are 3 possible positions to be in: primary voting, alternate voting, and the non-voting organizational member liaison. Primary and alternate voters are those people who are responsible for submitting a company position and comments on any ballot that is initiated. Each company is permitted to have 1 primary voter, 1 alternate, and up to 6 organizational member liaisons. Each company is limited to 1 vote, but comments may be collected from other subject matter experts within the organization and submitted under the voting member's name. Members in the user category and sometimes the general interest category are considered independent experts. In other words, they are representing their own expertise and not representing a company. Each individual gets 1 vote. Organizational member liaisons are typically company representatives, and they have access to all of the committee documents, but are not considered full-fledged committee members and thus have no vote. They can, of course, and should provide comments for consideration through their primary voting representative. Each committee member has several responsibilities. First is to actively participate in committee business. Second is to respond to all committee ballots. This is a requirement, and missing 2 consecutive votes is cause for removal from the committee. Third is to regularly attend all meetings. It is understood that this may not always be possible, but an alternate should be arranged in those instances where the primary cannot attend. Fourth, provide comments on documents under development, both in writing and during discussions at meetings. And fifth, please let AAMI know if you have left your company or if your contact information has changed. That is the end of Module 1. I hope you've learned something new. The next module addresses the co-chair selection process and the specific roles that co-chairs play on AAMI committees. If you have any suggestions for improving either the co-chair guide or this module, please forward suggestions to standards@aami.org and be sure to include co-chair training in your email subject line. Thanks for listening.